you believe in the existence of extraterrestrials? Tell me I'm crazy.
Mulder, you're crazy.
I can't give up. Not as long as the truth is out there. I want to believe.
Welcome to this episode of the X-Files with your host Mark and Becky. Hi Becky.
Hello.
Wow, so we're just getting over Christmas here, and I hope you had a good time, a good Christmas, Becky. I know I did.
I did indeed, thank you.
Yeah, and just one thing I wanted to mention before we get into our main episodes is my book. My book's been getting a lot of downloads. I'm just waiting for some reviews here and there because I don't know if anyone wasn't aware, I put it out for free between the 20th and the 24th of December as a little Christmas present, and there was quite a lot of downloads, but I know everyone's busy over Christmas, you know, that's how it is. No reviews yet, but I'm sure some of you who downloaded it will get to it soon and hopefully give me a nice review. And then for those of you who missed that particular offer, it's still available on Amazon. It'll be available forever on Amazon Kindle, and it's dirt cheap, so you know there's no real reason not to just buy it anyway. And I just realised I haven't said the name. Remember, X-Files, the X-Files episode by episode season 1, with an introduction by Becky here with me. Enjoy it. I know that a few people have let me know they've really enjoyed it, which is great. And they said it was a really fast read, which is good. You know, it's a breathe through, but I hope it's detailed enough on each episode in season 1 to be of interest. Okay, one other thing before sort of general business before we get to our X-Files episodes. I just wanted to let any X-Files listeners here that know that on our main podcast, The Good, the Bad and the Odd, we'll be covering Hammer movies throughout 2017. We're kind of making a theme of 2017 as Hammer movies. Now, there are a lot, you know, I think we counted over 40 we want to cover. We're not covering every single Hammer film, but we're doing pretty much all the important Hammer horrors. So that's something to look forward to in 2017 from our main podcast. I'm sure you'll be listening to that, Becky. I know you like that Hammer.
I will indeed.
Unfortunately, Captain Kronos is right at the end.
Well, it'll be a build-up, so... But
it does start with Quatermass, so that's kind of a good start. But Quatermass is Captain Kronos is very close to the end of Hammer. The sort of classic Hammer run. So that'll come eventually, but it'll be a bit of time before then. Okay, I'll tell you what, let's have a bit of music and then get into for our first episode of this cast. Okay, a little bit of a play in there. So this one is episode 9 of season 3, Nisei. I didn't know what that term meant. I looked into it. Apparently it's a term to mean the children of a Japanese family, sort of second generation Japanese family who went to North America, or US usually. So their parents were born in Japan, emigrated to America, and any children born after that are referred to as Nisei. Not quite sure what that means in terms of this episode, but interesting point anyway. Directed by David Nutter, you know, the old stalwart David Nutter, and written by Chris Carter, Frank Spotnitz, and Howard Gordon. First aired on the 24th of November 1995 in America. What do you think of this one, Becky?
Very complex.
A lot going on, and there were some quite distinct silly logical jumps to keep the story moving. There was like people were just turning up at places, the right place at the right time for stuff. Though, you know, okay, that's filmmaking, and I always think, well, if you could have inserted extra scenes that got you there, that's fair enough. Do you know what I mean? Rather than just being coincidence. I just assume we haven't seen part of the story, but it's still a coherent story. But anyway, there's it starts with like a basically a train going through a town and these children waving at it on bikes. It all looks very innocent, but it then gets kind of left. This train coach gets left behind, and then there's a kind of autopsy going on, and then all hell breaks loose because it's stormed by a SWAT team or a special ops team of some sort to steal this what appears to be an alien autopsy body. Well, that was hell of a start, wasn't it?
It was indeed. And that theme kind of runs through, because this is a two-parter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Runs through these two episodes, that kind of, facade, these children, it looks very innocent at the beginning, but it's all about kind of lifting that curtain and getting to the bottom. Both of the episodes kind of counter Mulder's belief in extraterrestrials with very human kind of answers as to what actually is happening.
Yeah, this posits a whole branch of the mythology that we kind of touched on, but we never fully pursued. But we'll get to that as we go through the episode, I guess. It's kind of an interesting one that I'll pick up when we discuss the second episode. Or it might be best to leave. I'm not quite sure, because it's like almost an alternative to what eventually happens. I've got to be careful here because I don't want to let any spoilers out. But it's as credible almost as what happens, eventually in the X-Files. It's a tricky one. Anyway, it does begin with Mulder watching a video of this, and I do notice there's a pretty good quip from Scully pretty much straight away when she comes in and finds him watching this alien autopsy video. Did you catch that?
What about this isn't what you usually watch? Yeah,
this isn't your usual form of entertainment. Big grin on her face. And Mulder don't care, does he? He's like, yeah. And he says he bought it for $29.95. And the only lead they got is the guy selling the tapes, right? So they go and visit him and get there. This is like a couple of minutes in. We're really fast moving. We've had a autopsy, a SWAT team, sort of kill it. They shoot all the doctors, don't they? Pretty much, do they? Yeah, they do. And then Mulder's in there, and they're off to go find the guy that sold the tape. And they find basically a corpse on a bed with a bag over its head, which is pretty grim. But they notice that he's dead. He's dead, but he's still warm. And then a guy runs out. It's a Japanese bloke carrying a weird briefcase, and Mulder not weird, but just a very mundane briefcase, really. Mulder chases him and
doesn't stop running for the
doesn't stop running, just ignores him, and he's like not talking English either. And at one point, Mulder gets to him, and the guy sort of kicks his ass, really, doesn't he? And doesn't Mulder say something like, "I'm tired of always losing my gun," or something like that? And then he basically puts the gun in him and has to fire the gun to get him to sort of stop, right? They've got this bloke in. And he's got the briefcase. Mulder picks up the briefcase. So they've got this bloke in custody, and then Skinner tells them they got to back off because he's a diplomat. Now, I don't know. I guess in some places and sometimes diplomatic immunity does stretch to being on the scene of a murder.
Apparently so.
Yeah, apparently. And Skinner asks what they're doing, and they kind of both look well shifty. And Mulder says, "I'm looking into video piracy." And for a start. He does the X-Files. He's not going to be looking at... Skinner knows better than that, but he decides not to. Best not to ask. But he does say the case... it's not so much that they letting him go. They're saying the case has to be passed on. Sorry, I don't mean the briefcase. I mean the the incident has to be passed on to other authorities. But we know that Mulder's still got the case, and he's full of weird stuff like satellite photo. It's got satellite photos. It's got a list of names with this from the UFO network or something, Mutual UFO Network.
Yes.
And there's a woman's name circled, so it's like, are those guys pursuing that? What's that going on? So Mulder goes and sees the lone gunman. This is probably the weakest lone gunman segment. I bet there was very little jokes or anything. It was more like very functional. Like, what's this about?
Extremely plot driven. Yeah.
Really disappointing. Lone gunmen are better than that. Should give them decent stuff. Slightly weak right now. There's no reason they couldn't have had it written slightly better, a bit more entertaining without it being any longer. But there you go. Shame, really.
It is, but we do get more of an emphasis on Scully's kind of lone gunman, I should say, in Agent Pendrell. Is it later?
Yeah.
So that we get that kind of a little bit of comedy with that in this two-parter, and he kind of becomes her lone gunman, which I thought was quite sweet.
Yeah, and he's kind of trying to be charming or flirty a bit, or
I thought it was really
at
cute.
least professional, but he's like really messing it out. It's like, oh man, poor guy. I'd probably do that if I was around Agent Scully, though, to be honest. So
Yeah.
there you go. Anyway, the satellite is. They think they come to the conclusion it's the Japanese have been tracking a certain boat on the ocean, and they know is it the Talapus? I wrote it down when I heard it, and I can't remember how they pronounced it now. And then we see the diplomats sort of swanning out the embassy, and get into a car, but they're dodgy looking blokes that look just like our usual, the assassins we kind of associate with the syndicate, and indeed he gets garroted by a guy. Now I don't know I wasn't sure how to refer to this guy, but in some notes I found he's called the red-haired man. Didn't look very red-haired to me. What do you think?
No, not at all.
Weird.
That was a bit strange.
Yeah, weird. He's a very striking man. They always kind of pick striking, mad-eyed, chisel-featured guys for this kind of thing that look like can see into your soul, and they'll kill you at a drop of a hat. They always get them kind of actors on this, and he's another one of them. His favoured weapon is the garrote, so there you go. He's got a touch of the From Russia with Love about this one.
It really does. He reminded me as well. Is it Robert Nepper, the actor?
I don't know the actor is.
Oh, he's in Prison Break and in the new Hard Target film. He's a very similar kind of look about him. He's very much a character actor, kind of like Brad Dourif.
Yeah, he reminded me a bit of Robert Patrick, actually, from Terminator 2. And also who becomes a significant part of the X-Files later on as well.
Yeah. Everything's connected.
Yeah, everything's connected. They let me see, where are my notes? I've got so many notes on this. It's kind of it is a fairly dense episode. This Scully goes to see the woman on the list. The two women come to the door, and they tell her that they recognise her and she's one of them. Scully looks pretty confused, and the guy that they found earlier who was dead was the head of their chapter. And they just out of the blue say, have you had an unexplained event in the last year? And she's like a bit flustered here. It's like she doesn't quite understand what's going on. Meanwhile, it's intercut quite well because Mulder's off doing his James Bondy kind of stuff, looking for the ship, running around shipyards and stuff like that. And Scully goes in, and there's all these women just sitting around. Sort of, it's like a self-help group or something. And they start telling her about it and like how they've been taken many times to the bright white place, and there are men that do tests. And then Scully starts getting flashbacks, don't she? Yeah. Now it's weird because when I remember distinctly when I saw the Donny Faster episode, I could have sworn she had them kind of flashbacks from that point on. Though she had a kind of a bit in that. There was no more mention of it until this episode, I believe, if I remember rightly. So yeah. I remember this wrongly. I remember her having flashbacks much sooner in the seasons, in the episodes than this point. But obviously, memory's terrible. So. You know.
And she is, I think, actively suppressing it herself because we saw in the episode where Mulder wasn't around when he was floating in space. She didn't know where he was missing, and she was sent by Melissa. To a psychologist who tried to what's the term? Regression therapy, yeah. And she actively pushed back. She wouldn't allow herself to she wouldn't open herself up to it. So I think she has been actively kind of suppressing it. And these people, obviously they were in the room with her. From what they were, they're saying, it just all kind of comes flooding back. It's really quite sinister, this particular scene, in a very subtle way.
It is, and it calls back to that episode because the woman actually says to her, "Have you ever heard of?" I think she says, "Have you heard of regression therapy?" Or she may have said, "Have you tried?" I can't remember exactly, but it's like a callback to that Melissa business, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now in this one, she remembers more. She sees in her mind's eye herself pregnant, which I don't think we've seen from her point of view. Before we saw it, as a like a God viewer, but not from her point of view. In this one, she seemed to remember from her point of view, but then she continues denying. She says, "Are you not? You may be mistaking me for someone else." And then they say, "Yeah, but have you got the mark?" And they show the back of a neck, and they hold up all their implants one at a time in a little jar, which is. Cinematically, as a visual sort of sensory experience, is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And in fact, it kind of makes sense because at first it's like, you wouldn't sit there around with a job, but if it was a self-help group, that'd be affirmation, I would imagine, and would be done perhaps, to show they're all in it together, kind of thing. So she's. Again, Scully asks where this Betsy, the woman who was marked in the paper was called Betsy is her name, and again she asks where Betsy is, and they tell her she's in the hospital, she's got cancer, and she'd been taken since she was in her teens, so she's a frequent abductee, and basically they revealed that they believe cancer's going to kill them all. So what these men are doing is affecting them either deliberately or, as a byproduct. Which kind of harks back to that, Scully being almost on the verge of death when she was first abducted, doesn't it?
Yes.
So it's kind of that business. I just remembered, meanwhile all this is going on, Mulder's running around the dockyard, isn't he? He doesn't
want he doesn't stop moving from the moment when he shoots that.
It's a proper running episode, this. David Duchovny must have been worn out.
Obviously we cover on the United Nations of Horror, we have specials that cover, action films in the action zone. We could easily cover these 2 episodes because he's on a train, jumping over things. It's fantastic.
He had a touch of as I say, James Bond's, but a touch of the speed about it.
He really did.
He was running around and he basically is on the boat, and then this special ops team turn up again, and he kind of he evades them a little. Then he just jumps off the side of the boat, fully dressed, doesn't he?
Swan dives in and just disappears, which really did make me laugh how he manages to get away from everybody.
It's proper 70s action. That's the sort of thing you see in 70s action films. In a trench coat too, wasn't he, as well? Wow. Yeah. That must have waited. That takes good swimmer. Swim around in that. But then he emerges in the dark, so has he been swimming throughout? And this bit confused me. He kind of emerged from the dark and he was already at the warehouse where weird stuff was going on. So what? I assumed that was meant to be the same dockyard, but it was like...
looking at when I was researching, it was in several different places. It seemed to be these different sites. So I don't know. It seemed like it's in Con Air when Nicolas Cage. Is it not Con Air? Face Off.
No, Face Off. Yeah.
When he jumps off the prison in the middle of the sea prison, suddenly manages to swim to shore, and he's meant to be in the middle of nowhere. That it kind of reminded me of that. It did make me laugh.
Yeah, there was a touch of that. They did cut some silly corners there. But it's hard to figure out how you do that in a script, other than... I mean, a better way would have been him evading them and him hiding in their truck and going back with them. That would have worked better. You can tell I'm an awesome script writer because I can think of all of this sort of stuff. But
that's it. It's a very cinematic episode, and it was very enjoyable. It's entertaining. Yeah. It was just, and I think from doing a bit of research, they did actually cut quite a little bit out. So that makes sense, like you say, that you just have to kind of fill in the blanks for your. Yeah,
the issue was for me is he appeared in the dark and he was dripping. So it was like it gave you the impression he'd been swimming around for hours, and then just emerged somewhere. Anyway, let's bypass that. He then kind of sees this warehouse. It's got a large covered vehicle being sprayed with dry ice or something, and surrounded by cars. Anyway, he goes off home, But he realises his place may have been busted into. The lights don't seem to be working, which is usually an excuse to get the torches out in the X-Files. And I'm all happy for that, whenever that happens. However, he doesn't. He just walks around with his gun. Skinner's sitting there in the dark and telling him it was like this when he got here. And he tells Mulder that the diplomat's been murdered, and they're looking for a case that should have been they expected to be found with him. So basically Skinner says, I want that case. You know, he knows Mulder's got it. Because we've got to give it back to the Japanese. Because basically he's inferring there's going to be a major diplomatic incident if he doesn't get the case back. Mulder don't care about that, though, does he? And we see the old senator in this one, Richard Matheson, who starts telling him about the autopsy, and, you know, it's what's going on about alien-human hybrids and stuff like this. And then we start getting mentions of Unit 731 from World War II, the infamous Japanese medical and disease research facility, which was basically a site of horrible atrocities during the war, on a par with the Nazis, probably even worse than the Nazis from some of the accounts. That if you're of a delicate disposition like me, do not read about what Unit 731 got up to. It's really quite upsetting. And it turns out that these Unit 731 were given protection to turn over their medical data. Again, this is apparently true, and it's even, in a way, it's even more disgusting than when they made deals with the rocket scientists, because you can impartially understand rocket science tech being divorced from atrocities, say, whereas if it's the direct medical people doing the stuff, it's not excusable, really. But anyway, I'm going off on a sort of moral tangent there. Anyway, that's part of this story. That
comes back though to the title itself. I mean, this for me was a development from, I think it was the Erlenmeyer flask, when the narrative was very much concerned with Nazi scientists being embraced by the US government, you know, the military, to, you know, their knowledge would help them in various different, you know, technological research, all sorts, but and biological. But the term Nisei, I think, has something to do with that, in terms of, you know, we find out throughout this two-parter, you know, Japanese scientists from the Second World War, again, being embraced by the US government.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the term comes from. And I thought that was really telling, because they're both very harrowing, especially the second episode, as we'll get to. But I think that's very telling in regards to the very human element of these stories.
So Nisei may also be sort of a way of expressing second-generation scientific research, maybe, or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it does tie up to
I read it.
Yeah, it does tie up to the three-parter that started the season as well, doesn't it? That's more Nazis, but it kind of ties into that vibe, you know, of excuse Nazis. Scully starts telling Mulder about all this stuff, you know, these women, and she's properly rattled by all this, which is, you know, unsurprising, really. And it's basically, they find that there's this like secret railway net. I don't want to call it a network, but basically a system of railway carriages used to conduct this experimentation, perhaps. I can't remember, but she basically meets up with X at some point, who suggests she needs to look more into the chip. But I think before that, she does take it somewhere, does it? And does she talk to the guy you were talking, you know, her gunman?
Agent Pendrell, yeah. That was quite a sweet scene.
He tells her it's very complex, and this, that, and the other. I'm trying to think. He comes up with a really goofy line, and I didn't write it down. Damn.
I think.
Oh no, that was in the second part.
That's in the next episode. Yeah.
That's why I haven't got it really in my notes here. There's. I'm trying to think. There's. Doesn't Mulder now? He's hanging around the rail yards, isn't he?
Yeah,
and
that's
again,
what I'm saying.
it's not
in
really
several
explained.
different states, apparently, I think.
Yeah. And he sees a van pull up, and the Japanese guys pull out something wearing like a hazmat suit, and it looks like an alien. It does look like an alien. And the cars leave, the train goes off. Mulder runs after the train down the track, but he doesn't catch it. So he starts chasing it across the country, I think. Meanwhile, Scott is watching the video. Oh, at one point, she also... Doesn't she, when she's talking about Unit 731, see a picture and she says, I know this man.
Yeah, and he says, unless you're in Japan in the 1950s, then you couldn't know him.
Yeah, he said he's died in 65. And then she also sees him on the video of the alien autopsy. She sees him, and we get a close-up of him by like a pad, a number pad to lock. And I remember thinking at the time, that's going to play something to do with the plot. 'Cause, it's like, what's it called? Chekhov's gun. If you see something like that, it's going to come into play. And she sees him up close and she has a good look at him. And then I think when Mulder... Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm getting the second part mixed up with the first. And we also see the red-headed man kind of following the Japanese guy, the doctor and another Japanese guy, and he followed not the doctor, but the other Japanese guy into a toilet and does the old garrotting on him. He's a bit garrot happy, that guy.
He really is, and this whole thing really reminded me of Horror Express.
Is it because it's only because it's a train? Oh, I see what you mean. It's running up a carriage. I guess.
They're finding these bodies, because Mulder finds the body in the trailer, doesn't he? Yeah.
No, like I say, I was thinking of James. I was thinking from Russian with Love because there's an assassin in that called Grant who likes garrotting people with his he's got a watch garrot or something, and that's on a train as well. So I was thinking of that actually.
But also with Horror Express because of the creature that's on board.
Yeah.
Same with, we find out in this two-parter, and the creature looks a little like the human hybrid, whatever it is. It looks very similar to, I thought, the creature from Horror Express.
Right. Yeah, in a way. Anyway, if any of our listeners haven't seen Horror Express, go watch it. Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, Telly Savalas as a Cossack, and a Rasputin standing. It's awesome. Anyway.
It's amazing. I hope you're covering that, by the way.
So, that's not a hammer.
Oh, it's not? Is that?
No, it's not a hammer. It's a mad Italian British thing. Anyway.
Do you know what? I always thought that was Hammer.
No, it's not a Hammer film. X, then basically Scully tries to contact X, right? She puts an X in the window at some point. She does that. X just turns up and tells her she needs to stop Mulder getting on the train. He's in danger. Don't get on the train. Again, not really explained that well. It's basically X has told her to say that, and she then says it. I think I couldn't think of a really strong motivational reason why she'd just believe X in this case.
Yeah,
anyway.
It's a bit strange. She's kind of, I don't know, she's kind of forced into Mulder's role. And the thing is, if they'd have been switched around, if she'd have seen all the things he's seen, she can't dispute. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
It's very convenient that it's Mulder that's seeing the spaceships. And,
yeah. I mean, but having said that, she's had enough to rattle her cage plenty in this.
Well, hers is very personal, isn't it? Not only she's got all these memories that have flooded back, but she's also got the prospect that she's now, she has this cancer that they're talking about.
Yeah. Mulder basically intercepts the train and he's on a bridge over it as it's going underneath. Don't get on the train, she's saying, and he's saying, who told you this? And she's going, come on Mulder, let it go. Anyway, he jumps on the train, drops his phone, which I thought was quite a good bit of plotting actually. That kind of makes sense, doesn't it? And it kind of ends there, and this is a two-part, so it kind of ends there. Action-packed, like you say, a lot of action, a lot of kind of exciting stuff. Made me want to look forward to watching the next part. I was kind of glad I had the opportunity to sit and watch it straight on after this, because it was kind of basically because the redhead man was so lethal and Mulder was kind of jumping on a train with him. I thought that was kind of cool. So not a bad one. What was any other thoughts on this one?
Not really. I'll save them for the second part.
Okay. Do you want to rate this one, or do you want to rate them together?
Should we rate them together?
Okay, cool. All right, let's have a little musical interlude, and then we'll get on to the next one.
Train arrived, 16 coaches long, go too slow. Well, that long black train got my baby and gone.
Okay, this one aired 1st of December 1995, directed by Rob Bowman, written by Frank Spotnitz. So Frank Spotnitz heads in as main writer on this one. And we get quite a startling scene at the beginning. Basically, these military types, lots of guns, lots of sort of grunts, going into this medical facility and rounding up people. Now we see pretty clearly they're not just human beings. They've got weird heads and elongated fingers. But we see one character kind of running around in the background who isn't quite the same as those. He looks more like a diseased human with an enlarged head. But he's running around and sort of witnesses what's going on there. They round these other creatures up, take them to a clearing in the wood, and basically execute them, machine gun them into a mass grave. Pretty grim.
Really grim. And did you notice as well, the beginning, the end of the credit sequence, instead of "the truth is out there," the words were "apology is policy"?
No, I missed that. I didn't catch on to that. That gets used. That phrase gets used, doesn't it, during the episode?
And that opening is extremely powerful, especially with that particular text. It's a very politically charged episode, I believe.
Yeah, and it does relate. Again, it goes back to World War II being the basis for all of this, somewhat. Scully was with X and he's asking about what's the Japanese collection with all this, and he just says, I don't know. But he tells her, go look at the implant. There's more there. I think he uses the phrase, there's more there than you'll ever need to know, which is an interesting kind of way of putting it. Then Mulder's on the train. He basically gets into it. He's lost his phone, but he gets into it. And there's like a nerdy kind of guard guy. And he asks him to give him access to the quarantine. And he hasn't got access to the quarantine, so he can't really help. So in the meantime, Scully finds the chips taking in brain impulses and sending out brain impulses. And she kind of postulates what it might be for. She takes quite significant logical leaps here. She, I believe, did she say she thinks it can record memories?
The chip itself replicates memory function in the brain. That's what Agent Pendrell says, and he says that it could be I think Scully replies that it could be artificially replicating a person's mental processes, which is very telling in terms of what's going to happen. Yeah. But yeah, she basically says that people can read every thought that's kind of going through your brain. Yeah.
He does say that unfortunately in the process of trying to analyse it, the chip got destroyed, but he does know it's Japanese, and somehow there's a logical leap that he's found some sort of docket that it's been shipped to one Japanese doctor in a certain place.
But he says that there's a name of the production company, whatever, that on it. Why, if it's so covert, why would it have the name of the manufacturer on the chip? I was like, what, really?
We found this chip inside us. We don't know what it is. Oh, it's got a name on. Right, okay,
exactly. I was like, unless that's like an incredible red herring that they, that's been designed for, to lead them basically down a rabbit hole. That really threw me. Yeah,
it was a bit goofy. Again, a bit of a convenience, really, rather than a sort of, real plotting. I mean, no, not an inconvenience, a plot hole, really. That was goofy. Maybe they could have come up with something better than that, or the trail could have gone cold and there was another line in. I don't know. Anyway, so she has this interaction and she says, "Keep it up," and he says, "Keep it up yourself."
So sweet, bless him.
It's like what an idiot I am, kind of. was that attitude. And then we see the so-called redhead man that isn't redhead on the train, and he starts following the doctor down the corridor, who starts walking a bit faster, and basically gets him in a room, a private room on the train, and gets out his garage. And we almost instantly see Mulder walk past it without, the door's shut, obviously. unlocked, and Mulder just happens to, it's given us a clear note that Mulder is right by the guy and doesn't even know it. It might not be aware of how much danger he's actually in. So Scully goes off to check this location of this doctor. And it turns out to be that medical facility we kind of see at the beginning, and there's not just one man but several men running around in blue overalls, and she chases them. She happens to see this like string thing sticking out the floor, which is a trapdoor. She opens it, and we see all these deformed, or they've got physical deformities. They're lepers, yeah. And they're begging for mercy. They think she's there to kill them, and so she's obviously not there for that. In the meantime, Mulder finds the dead doctor with his throat bleeding, and these, I think, is it a kid and a woman see it, and he goes, oh, he's not very well. It's kind of, I presume they don't see the blood. Okay. And anyway, we cut back to Scully. She asks them what they're doing here. They start telling her it's a leper colony and its facility's closed. And she says, I think she's looking for Dr. Zammer. And basically, we get the impression that Dr. Zammer is this doctor. It's a different name. And he says the quite dreadful phrase, they all left right before the death squad started coming. Which is pretty good. Yeah. The guy that speaks for them all shows her the mass graves, and then a helicopter kind of arrives, and there's a spotlight, and they get caught in the spotlight. The leper runs away. Scully runs too. She's running through the woods. There's a really cool sequence where her spotlight's tracking her through the woods, so you're not sure if they can see her or not. Because it might be it just happens to be pointing that way, but it's a bit unclear. But then suddenly a load of red lights turn up, and it's these has a special ops team with like red lasers on their guns sort of surround there. She basically gets caught, but she can also hit distant gunshots. Basically, it's implied they're tidying up after themselves. Actually, you know what? I cannot remember how Scully gets out of this. Anyway. Sorry, go on there.
Just to say, I think it's called Escalante. I think is how you pronounce it. The leper. The person that is actually kind of conversing with her and takes her to the mass grave. When the helicopters, kind of find them, he runs in one direction, she runs in another, and she is kind of surrounded by the military and taken to see the first elder. But she hears in the distance a gunshot, and we know that he's been shot. Which is really kind of moved me. This thing when she finds the mass grave. And you actually see it, that, this episode really doesn't kind of hold back. No. And, you see all the bodies. It really was.
In the meantime, Mulder's, he's found the dead doctor, and he says to his little guard friend, who he's, taken as his, helper, he tells him, you can't stop the train until I find the killer. And then Mulder goes down to the quarantine care, sees the door open, goes in with his... gun drawn. He then looks through the vent, and he sees what looks like an alien, really. And then the red-headed man tries to go at him, but the guard grabs the gun and makes the red-headed man stop. And the red-headed man sort of talks him down a bit. He goes for his ID, sort of shows him it, and then the guy just bolts at that point, doesn't he? Shuts him in. It's like, blimey. But Mulder manages to get his gun again, but the guy starts again talking to him. He's kind of smooth, this fella. He's unflustered. He goes, you've got no idea what you're dealing with. He claims he's from the NSA, and there's a bomb in the train. Basically, the bomb's there to stop the alien falling into anyone else's hands. If it doesn't arrive where it's meant to, or whatever, the bomb will go off and destroy all evidence, I think is the implication. But he's got the code to get in, but he's not sure he's got the code to get out. He basically warns Mulder, it might be a different code to come out, and it'll set the bomb off. But you can't tell whether he's bluffing or, he could be saying anything to sort of delay Mulder. And again, Mulder's not entirely sure either. And then, funnily enough, the red-headed guy's phone goes off, and he hands his phone over to Mulder, who then talks to the first elder, the guy that we've seen previously as part of this syndicate, isn't he?
They love seeking Scully out, don't they, in particular?
Yeah. And he says, there's someone here to talk to you, it's Scully. And she starts telling him what the whole plot appears to be, that it's nothing to do with alien-human hybrids, it's more human experimentation, is kind of what she posits there. So that's a different tangent entirely. So she's saying, like, the whole UFO thing's just a cover for, a more mundane and in some ways more terrible sort of truth. So that's kind of an interesting possible explanation for everything we've seen so far. Well, not everything, but a lot of it. So she says that this Sam has been conducting all these experiments on this secret railway sister. The alien abduction theory is kind of a smokescreen. And she says, yeah, there is a bomb in the car. And she also, this comes out of nowhere, she says that the guy that they've got in the car has got some sort of disease that would spread and kill thousands of people if the bomb goes off.
Yeah.
Is it hemorrhagic fever, I think?
I think so, yes.
And she knows it's on the timer. The timer's fairly long though, it's like an hour and a half or something, so they've got sort of time to figure stuff out. But then she watches the video again. And at some point she actually says to Mulder, yeah, I recognise the doctor, he's on the video. And she says, oh, that's where you know him from then. And she says, no, that's not where I know him from. And we see her remember him as being one of the people operating on her. Which kind of confirms this story, that he was behind all of this, in some way. So basically Mulder managed to unlock the door, and the red-haired man knocks him out, but then X appears and shoots him. The carriage has been left on its own, hasn't it, in the middle of nowhere.
That was Mulder's doing, wasn't it?
Yeah, but X appears, shoots the red-headed man, so we get another lethal assassin get just taken out straight away, pretty much. And it looks like X has got a choice what to do and decides to save Mulder, but I don't think there was really any other choice if that was a diseased thing. I don't,
it kind of plays on Mulder's belief still all the way through, in that he's basically saying that if it is an extraterrestrial, that the government will have to come and save them and stop the explosion from happening. So you've got that little thread against all of this. It's medical, it's military, it's a very, like you say, human experimentation. Is nothing to do with extraterrestrial, which is the cover, which is a really interesting dynamic, and the fact that X does just show up and save him. Yeah,
it's kind of cool. So Mulder does get over his injuries, but they find a journal that he'd seen on the car, but he realises it's a substitute, and it's not the real thing. But it was all in Japanese, so he didn't know any of it really. But then we see the journal kind of being translated, and then as the camera pans back, the smoking man sort of sitting there having a fag, watching what's going on. So basically it's gone back to him. So it's hard to know where this leaves you in terms of the mythology, actually. Is that the real, or is it just another smoke screen, or what's going on? Because when you start thinking about it, lots of things have happened that don't quite conform to that model of reality. So it could be something to do with it, but it doesn't quite gel together. But it's an interesting mythology in and of its own, if it were the true one. Okay, I'll tell you, anything to say about this last one? Or these two?
Just say again, both of them seem to be very cinematic, and I know that John, I think it's Bartley, the director of photography, won the American Society of Cinematographers Award for it. For S03 and I think this is, just from a bit of research, that this is the episode that allowed Bowman to, basically Carter offered him the director role for the first film adaptation from
It's funny,
this episode.
actually, watching this one did make me think of the film. Some of the scenes in the film, and certainly there were certain bits of it where it looked really good. The bit where Molly's wandering through the forest and the lights are tracking her, that was kind of cool, that whole sequence. And there was some action stunt stuff as well, wasn't there,
Yeah, I think originally it was meant to be just a standalone episode, and because of all the trains and the effects involved, that it was due to budget constraints, they were going to cut it completely, but then decided to make it into a two-parter and move it to later in the series. And I'm kind of glad they did, because like you say, these two episodes really do raise some really interesting questions that make you doubt the overall myth arc at the moment, which is quite interesting for the show to do at this point, I think.
It's hard to imagine how they could have fitted even half of the stuff in. They fit so much into these two that it just couldn't have possibly worked to the same detail in a one-off, and even a bit of it would have trouble fitting into a single episode. Okay, what would you rate these two episodes
overall together?
Well, I rate them the same, actually. So for me, it's either way it cuts. You can rate them. Rate them separately. Let's go with that.
Okay, I think I would give the first one a 7 and the second one an 8.
Cool. I give the first one a 7 and the second one a 7. I like them both about the same, but for different reasons. I thought they were decent ones. I'm finding more and more I'm not so much a fan of Myth Arc versus Monster of the Week episodes, but I quite like some of them, and this is one of those ones where I thought it was interesting. I didn't mind the plot holes. I could see them, they were really obvious and a bit. It felt almost like, in Indiana Jones, where he climbs onto a submarine and disappears in it. It's a bit of that. But I'm happy to dismiss that as long as I can. But I prefer it if I can rationally think, if they'd have put in this scene and that scene, they'd have got to this point. So that's fine. But it was certainly the one where he just swims around and appears and finds that didn't work in that context. But it wasn't bad, So I quite like these. So, okay. I didn't mention at the beginning, we've decided to change the format of the show a little. And we discussed it over Christmas a little, and before Christmas. And we've decided to go to a 2 episodes a show format, but more frequently. So you'll still be getting the same stuff, but you'll get twice as many podcasts, and they'll be half as long. And the reason for that is the episodes were getting longer and longer, and that's fine. But you come to it fresher when you don't have to fit so much in. So that's the reason we've done that. So we're going to wind this one up here. And next time we'll be talking about the next 2 episodes. So bye from me.
Bye from me.
And remember, they're watching.
I